Tony D and Little Joan sitting on my lap, and this is, I guess it's screenwriting tips. I don't know, hot take, whatever you want to call it. I'll figure out a title later. Anyhow, what I wanted to do is sort of give you an update on what I see as the changing zeitgeist a little bit. Um, so, over at uh, Iron Age Media, they're cranking out the issues of Anvil, and there's some other people who are now doing something similar. They're trying to do some more fantasy, pulpy kind of fiction that isn't going to be political, and I think that's great. I think that's awesome. People, at least in enough numbers now, seem to be waking up to the nonsense that's going on in media, especially in the corporate world, and even outside of that. I mean, there are people who are creating comics that they might as well come right out of Marvel and DC, or books. They're just nothing. But here's kind of the next step in the battle, I think, is going to be that these corporate entities that started this, I guess you could say, although they've always kind of been doing it, they're going to change tactics. And they did this before. So, if you look back in, I would say, around the late 80s. Around the late 80s, a lot of movie blockbusters, they became very bloated, stupid, dumb. There were some sequels, a lot for the time, not nearly as many as now, not like franchises. They weren't doing a ton of franchises, but they were doing some. And they eventually lost some money and pulled back. But the pullback was much faster because they were much more in tune with profit. It was all about profit for the most part. And they started doing things. They started to get a little more experimental in the 90s. They started doing things that would make them more money and attract an audience. For instance, they started doing these movies where soundtracks were big because music got big again. The grunge got huge, and so Hollywood took advantage of that. They're going to do something similar, except they kind of can't totally follow that strategy because they've so crushed dissent, I guess you would call it, or independent media. There doesn't seem to be anything really obvious to take its place right away, other than one of two things. Either one, firing all the woke morons who ruined the various companies and properties, which would be good, but I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to go for the second option, which is they're going to pull back hard on the stick of wokeness and try to relaunch a lot of things that they think you'll like. So, for instance, Disney seems to be getting killed in Star Wars. I mean, everything Star Wars just looks like a disaster now. So how do you revive interest in this franchise that they've so thoroughly destroyed? Well, I don't know if they're getting rid of Kathleen Kennedy. I think they are. I think they're going to let her contract lapse. Maybe they'll even keep her. but just compartmentalize her out of the decision-making process. But what I think they're going to do is try to do a Mandalorian style type reboot of things. So they're going to try to, for instance, do I would say something like young Luke Skywalker, right? Or young Han Solo. Something where they go back to the original characters and make them freewheeling, crazy, young characters that are willing to do some things that are a little politically incorrect. They're going to open it up to that, so it'll at least simulate what it used to be. Now, will it work? Well, in the past, things like that did kind of work. You know, when the new Star Trek came out, you know, my first response is, God, this is terrible. Next Generation sucks. It had come out during the writer's strike, the first season. It was terrible. I think by the end of the second season, I think it was, or maybe it was the end of the first, it got better. They pulled it out of the dive. And then people came back to it. They stampeded to it. And then Next Generation was a big TV show. They stuck with it, and it paid off. They could do something very similar. Now, they are going to have to stick with it longer than they did with, say, The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian kind of was okay, I hear, first, second season. By the second season, I started to hear rumblings. It wasn't that great. But third season, boom, done. I don't know if they have the talent to pull this off. They would really have to compartmentalize hard and bring in people that were talented, like Favreau, be capable, but see powerless enough that they could bring them in, let them work their magic for a while, and then once everybody got back on board, gut it again. So I don't think you should go back to any of these old products. I think you should launch new stuff. I think you should support the new stuff. But the normies don't support the new. They just don't. It's very tough to get them on board with new. They need permission to read new. They need to know that they're not going to be the only weirdos reading something, seeing the movie. They can't be the one person that goes and sees this new thing. They can't. They can't bring themselves to do it. It's too odd for most people. I can, but I'm a weird guy. I'm a guy who's willing to go, hey, nobody's at that guy's booth. Let me go over there and check out a comic book. A lot of people just aren't. And I'll give you an example of my own personal experience. When I'm doing a show, comic book convention or whatever, if I have nobody in front of my table, it's very hard to get somebody to come over. You have to work it a little bit. You have to say, hey, how you doing? These are my books. And then even that might not work. Most people are friendly enough to at least acknowledge me. Sometimes they come over, sometimes they don't. But I have to work it to draw them in. If someone's already standing at the table, I get 2 or 3 people stopping. Suddenly everybody wants to stop, which is so frustrating. It was particularly frustrating recently in Philly because I really had to struggle to get people to come to my table because there was just too much space and they could walk very far away to avoid me, which again, a lot of people do. They see vendors like, I don't want to be sold. I don't want to be sold. I don't want interaction. I just want to go get my pretzel or whatever I'm got my mind on. So you got to like lure them in. And when I would finally get somebody in, almost instantly, the people who were avoiding me before now would go, oh, what's over there? Because they already saw somebody standing there. And then they would come over. And I would get 3 or 4 people. But then as they left, the same thing would happen. I would finally get a sale. I'd sell something and I'd sign it and I'd say thank you and blah, blah, blah. They'd be on their way. And the people who had been sort of lurking in the background, now they suddenly have permission to leave. Oh, he's leaving? Now, some of them would stay and I'd turn it into a sale. But that's kind of the mentality. I mean, it's, not to insult anybody, but it's kind of a sheep-like mentality. And I kind of get it because, sometimes you do take a risk. You buy a book or a comic you never heard of, and it sucks. And you feel like, man, I went out of my way to buy this thing, and it sucks. I took a chance, and this guy sucks. But, I mean, that's the chance you take with any media product, really. Did I get a review on here? 4 reviews. I don't know if I had 4 reviews before. 4 ratings, yeah. Nope, these aren't good. So yeah, this is going to be the hurdle going into it. And I don't exactly know what the answer is to get people onto the new. Part of it is, to say, F these people and their whacked out politics and everything. There should be some sort of sign, symbol, phrase, something that we could put on all our stuff that isn't, I don't know, communist? Isn't part of this ESG bullshit that we could all use that would help that. And I don't know what that is. If anybody has a suggestion, or if anybody knows of some group that's already trying a symbol or thing like that, please enlighten me. It doesn't have to be much. Maybe it's the American flag. Maybe it's the 76 flag, if you've ever seen that. It's got like 76, and I think it has 13 stars in a circle with the 76 in the middle. Maybe it's that, something like that, to symbolize sort of the freedom, but then that's political too, but probably very positive, liberty. Maybe it's the don't tread on me. I mean, maybe it's something like that. I don't know. Maybe that's too political. I'm just spitballing here. But something to get people in. And I don't quite know what that is. Because we do have other creators out there, and they're just creating crap. I mean, it's not nice to say. I don't mean to denigrate that. Why is my paperback only $7.28? Should be $8.99. That's weird. Well, looks like I'm having a sale. Is it the only one doing that? Yeah, it is. I have to go in there and check that. Anyhow, that's my thoughts on the next step. So number one, be very wary of the pullback from the corporate entities, because they're going to try to lure in the normies again. I guess the other thing is to warn your friends who are more normie about this kind of stuff not to jump back into Star Wars or Star Trek or whatever the hell they're trying to suddenly make based in order to lure people back in. Don't just jump on it. I think One Piece, the live action show of One Piece, might be the rare exception, because the buzz I'm hearing is the creator is very involved and loves it, and that I think is very important. So it might be good. I haven't really seen any reviews on it. I don't know the concept all that well. I was going to watch an episode tonight, but it's an hour long. I don't have time, but I never have time. But I may watch an episode. Maybe I'll review it. It'll give me a reason to watch it. So yeah, watch out for that. Warn the normies. Yeah, don't just fall back into that. Fall into something new. Fall into something independent. Maybe it's some kind of independent symbol. I don't know. Something to think on. Anyhow, that's it for me, Tony D and Little Joan. Check me out on Odysee, Bitchute, and Rumble for our more bass takes. If you can find a more bass take, I say take it. I will be at the Chemung Diner on September 9th. That's Saturday from 9 to 2, doing a signing for the Pineys. Come on down to the Chemung Diner. I don't know how much longer it's going to be there. Hope to see you there. We'll see you tomorrow.